It seems like every time I'm on an upswing, something happens. A few steps forward, maybe I even leapfrog forward. And then it's like Wile E. Coyote with an anvil falling out of the sky and landing square on my head, crushing me. Yesterday, and specifically last night, turned out to be an emotionally activating time. I was already in a weird place from what I shared yesterday about my reaction to the sand tray exercise and all the questions that came out of that. So many questions about what I want to do next. I had a not so great day at work with what I'll almost laughingly call a diagnostic evaluation from hell. Doesn't really matter why exactly. It just didn't go the way it was supposed to go, followed by some rough therapy work. And all that would have been fine, would have been par for the course. Wouldn't have been great for me, but I know how to deal with that. I got in the car to go visit the boyfriend, and I made the mistake of returning a phone call. The who doesn't matter. And honestly, if I shared that, I would never hear the end of it. What matters is I knew better than to return this particular phone call at this particular time because I know that call is always going to be emotionally draining. And I'm going to end the call trying not to throw my phone across the room or out the car window. And that call did not disappoint. Over the course of 30 or so minutes, this person made some observations about certain aspects of my current situation that didn't feel great. Not because they were right, not because they were pointing out things I didn't want to see, but because they were making my experience about them and then transferring what happened in their life to my future, predicting a bad outcome for my future because they never worked through their shit or really did anything to improve their situation. By the time I got out of the car, I was just about ready to lay down in traffic. Okay, not really. I'm being hyperbolic. I was, at that point, really agitated, wound up. And what did I do with that? Nothing healthy, nothing good. What I should have said right when I saw the boyfriend was something along the lines of, I just spoke with blank. Can I have a few minutes to recenter myself before we start our night? I didn't do that. I literally pushed him away and said I needed a minute to calm down. And I sat on the couch and edited yesterday's video. Once again, going through the emotional reaction to the sand tray exercise. So at this point, I'm already on edge from the day. I made the poor choice to return a certain phone call. And rather than facing it head on, I buried myself in a video where I'm talking about an emotional reaction to what may be a big change in my work life. You can imagine how pleasant I was after I finished the video and we finally started our evening. Fortunately, he was great about it. We went to dinner, tried a new burger place. Not great. Solid burger, but not the spectacular experience others made it out to be. So I had some disappointment into the mix, on top of frustration of what we had to do to actually get the damn burgers in the first place. Go back to the apartment, and now my irrational brain is starting to take over. I start reinterpreting facts in a not so great way. I started looking at things through the lens that person tried to give me on the phone and having some in the moment realizations about my history with that person. And that is when the anvil landed on my head. For the next hour, my patient boyfriend tried to comfort me, tried to challenge some thoughts I was having, but mostly he gave me space to just say things out loud and get it out of my head and start organizing my thoughts. I think out loud a lot, just not usually around other people. I find if I say the things, I'm better able to accept the things and more rationally think through what comes next. It wasn't the night we hoped for. Lots of awkwardness. Neither of us slept well. And the awkwardness continued in the morning and really even into this afternoon. I hate that. But we're fine. Everything is still going okay with us. It was just one of those moments, and those things happen in relationships. Today, though, I'm struggling with understanding how I can spend 3 weeks making great steps, huge steps, and then get so broadsided with things entirely within my control. That's the hard part I'm having to accept. That person is one of many feedback loops, but the feedback they provide is rarely helpful or accurate or encouraging or remotely reflective of my reality. And because of that, they're also an activation point or trigger point for me. Knowing that. Knowing that I already had a not great day and really wanted a good night together. Why in the actual fuck did I engage with that person? Partly a sense of obligation, partly a sense of guilt, but mostly just not giving myself the space I earned doing all the work I'm doing to take care of me. Being 100% with someone is hard. It's scary. Setting aside the fact I've spent my life and really my career compartmentalizing, I never saw a relationship where two people gave so freely to one another. That is not how it worked in my family. I didn't have an example of how to do it. And honestly, I never tried in prior relationships. I wasn't that invested. I didn't have that level of feeling for those people. So to do it now, there's a learning curve that I feel like I shouldn't have to have at nearly 50 years old. I thought that if I just willed it into existence, it would just be. Didn't work because I'm not somebody who easily trusts at all, ever. I'm not one of those trust but verify people. I'm one of those people that openly says, I don't fully trust. And that can't work in a relationship, not a healthy one. I need to be able to trust him, and he needs to be able to trust me. Not easy for me right now, especially with some of the things that led to where we're at this point. So, trying to be 100%, fuck, I don't know. Last night, I was 100%, and it actually made the night go worse. Maybe if I had held some of it back, it would have been better. But he said he wants 100% of me, and I'm trying to do that. Just kind of hard when it doesn't go so great in a time where it feels like I don't have much room for error, which is part of that perfectionist thing I talked about before. There's not a worksheet for this. There's not a handout or an activity. There's not an easy Lego like picture instruction or a how to manual. If I figure out how to write that book, a surefire bestseller, I'd retire rich tomorrow. But I don't have it. I'm struggling with how to do it because that level of trust requires an openness and vulnerability that I'm trying really hard to tap into, but that well ain't deep right now. Some days it's almost a dry well after, well, things. What's the lesson I'm learning today? That's not entirely clear to me yet. For sure, it's got something to do with remembering my triggers and avoiding them when possible. For sure, it's got something to do with recognizing those feedback loops that are more hurtful than helpful. And for sure, it's got something to do with letting go of this need to do everything perfectly to avoid making anything worse or to avoid an outcome I don't want. This recovery shit is hard. If you're actually doing the work and applying it in real life, in real time, it's hella hard and scary and unnerving and also exciting and encouraging. And, well, it's so many things all at once. That's where I'm at today. I'll check in tomorrow.